Hi, my name is Hugh, and this is an SRI 8610 GC, and I'm going to show you today how to know if your flame is lit. That's the flame of the flame ionization detector that we're talking about, FID detector. So this is an example of what the FID detector looks like in an 8610C GC. So you have to lift the lid, and there it is. It may be here, or here, or here, but it's going to be in one of these three places on every SRI GC. So we're switching to a slightly different GC now because it's easier to see on this GC. This is the SRI rack mount version of the GC. So if you had a 19-inch rack, this would slide right in. So this particular GC has two flame ionization detectors. And we very frequently get a question is, how do you know if the flame is lit? Or I don't have any peaks. And then we'll ask you, well, is the flame lit? So the way you know that the flame is lit is that you take a shiny object like this little wrench I have, and you hold it in front of the collector electrode, and you can see that there's a lot of water condensation appearing on this flat shiny wrench. So that FID is definitely lit. That's how you know. If you see the water condensation, then the flame is lit, because hydrogen and air, or oxygen in the air, combine to make water when there's a flame. So inside the FID, something has to ignite the flame, and we call that little thing an igniter. So if you remove this cap at the top of the FID, and be careful because it's frequently extremely hot, so you may have to use gloves, or you may have to just touch it for a second the way I'm doing it. Don't burn yourself. But if you look inside, you can see this igniter. You see this red glow that's buried kind of down in the detector body? Well, that's the glow that makes the flame light. Igniter. This is what the igniter looks like. It's a silicon carbide igniter, and it glows a red when it's connected to some source of voltage, which it gets by plugging it in right here underneath the FID detector. Wiggle that in there. Put that in there like so. Okay, so you can see the igniter is glowing kind of a dull red, and when I flip this switch on the front panel, the one that says flame ignite, you can see that the igniter actually gets a little brighter when I flip the switch. But we adjust this so that even when the switch is not elevated, that the igniter is always glowing this dull red, and that's what you look for down in the FID. If the flame's not lit, maybe it's because for some reason this igniter is not glowing like that. It should glow like that. The other reason that we see very commonly that the flame is not lit is that the built-in air compressor switch is off. Every GC that we make that has a built-in air compressor, which is most of them, but not all of them, has this switch said internal air compressor on. So make sure that the air compressor switch is on, because the flame certainly won't be lit if there's no air to support the flame. And also, we need to have a source of hydrogen in order to make the flame light. So the hydrogen can either be from the carrier gas, as it is in this particular GC, where the carrier gas is set to a pressure that goes through the column and then into the FID detector, and that's really all the hydrogen the detector needs. It does not necessarily need any extra hydrogen from the makeup hydrogen, but if you're using helium or nitrogen carrier gas or argon, then you might need to supply hydrogen. So check the hydrogen reading and make sure that you have hydrogen also going to the FID detector. The last reason that the flame frequently doesn't light is because the column is not connected. So that the column is connected to the FID detector here with this nut. So sometimes this nut is not tight, or there's some problem with the connection to the nut. So if the flame won't light and you've figured out that nothing else can be causing the problem, you have the igniter hot, you have air, you have hydrogen, remove this nut and cap it with some kind of a fitting, either a swage lock cap or a nut with a septum in there, and see if the flame lights with the column disconnected. If it does, then at least that tells us where the problem is. So thank you. Hopefully that'll help you make sure you can determine if your FID detector is lit.